If you were to plot my gaming history statistically, you'd see I've spent the largest percentage of my playing time with only a handful of games. I may play others here and there, but there are some titles that I've put hundreds of hours into, including one in particular that I keep coming back to. What is it about these particular games that keep me playing, hour after hour? Is it the game design, the mechanics, the narrative? Or is it something more basic than that? Fundamentally, I enjoy playing games with character progression. That is, a character who starts with very little in the way of gear and abilities, who then travels through the world, gathering new items and learning new skills. This doesn't necessarily mean my character gets more powerful, though that often comes with new weapons and abilities. All of the games in my most played list fall into this category, one I'm calling endless games. Essentially, these are games I could play forever, for better or worse. I'll take a look at 3 of these endless games and examine what it is about the character progression within each type that keeps me playing. The first, DayZ, is open world with no narrative. The second, Dark Souls, is a narrative-driven static world. And the third, World of Warcraft, is a narrative-driven open world. If you've seen my previous videos, this list won't come as a surprise. I've spoken at length about each game, but I thought it'd be interesting to examine how character progression drives my gameplay choices. DayZ is the definition of an open world game. You're dropped into a random location with nothing but the clothes on your back. It's up to you to explore the world, scavenging for food and weapons. There's no story about what you make for yourself. The game has no narrative ending. You continue through the world until you die. When you respawn, you start from scratch, appearing in another random location with all tangible progress lost. The gear and weapons you'd previously gathered are gone, either looted by your killer or lying on your former broken body. For me, my characters can last anywhere from an hour to a few days. My lifespan depends on how many other players are on the server and how reckless I'm feeling. I'm never really upset when I die, however, as it's the progression that I crave in DayZ. I love exploring the world, searching abandoned towns and cities for that new jacket or better rifle. I like seeing my character grow from a fresh spawn in a t-shirt to a badass soldier in a flak jacket and ballistic helmet. Every new life in DayZ, I decide what type of character I'm going to be. This is usually nothing more than a vague idea of how I'll approach other players or what type of gear I want to prioritize. One time I wanted to create a killer like the one from the British film Dead Man's Shoes, complete with a gas mask, green raincoat and fire axe. I didn't actually end up killing anyone with the axe, and I think I died stupidly falling off a building, but it was fun nonetheless. In DayZ, every playthrough is different. I might be on a different server with different random loot, or there might be a roaming gang of bandits killing fresh spawns on sight, or the server might be empty and I spend my time killing zombies. Because of this, I come away with a new experience every time. As there's a clear end to my character, at death, the gameplay loop in DayZ is fairly short. I start a new character, explore and gear up, die, and start again. The next endless game, however, is quite different, though death is just as inevitable. The Dark Souls series is literally a world away from DayZ. The games are set in static worlds with linear narratives. Your character's story has a beginning, middle, and end, though the implementation of the character is up to you. You choose who your character is, but the story is already set. There are 2 ways I consider Dark Souls an endless game. The first, with the New Game Plus mode, is built into the mechanics of the series itself, though this differs between Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2. In the first Dark Souls, after you kill the final boss and finish the game, you start again from the beginning with the same character. You keep all your abilities and most items, but the world is filled with tougher enemies and some new surprises. This is called New Game Plus. The main difference to this mechanic in Dark Souls 2 is that you can choose to trigger the New Game Plus mode rather than it being automatic. This means you can continue to explore the world and level up your character, instead of starting over at the beginning. You can play through the games multiple times, with each new iteration of New Game Plus increasing the difficulty. The gameplay loop in this situation is much longer, and you stay with the same character throughout. I don't tend to play New Game Plus that much, however, which brings me to the next way Dark Souls is an endless game. As you may have seen from my previous Dark Souls 2 videos, I enjoy creating new characters and character types. My favorite character so far is an analogue of the Norse god Thor, a melee warrior with lightning magic. I like to try out new weapon and skill combinations and play through the world I'm already familiar with. This way, the world is static and it's my character who changes. Most of my characters end up being fairly similar, however, usually warriors with minimal magic use. I don't mind the similarity, as it's the character progression I like. Unlike DayZ, where your progression is fully reliant on the items you find, your Dark Souls characters grow stronger through killing enemies and gaining souls. You then spend the souls to increase your stats like strength and dexterity. The stats you choose will determine what type of weapons your character can use or how damaging your spells will be. Stats, in conjunction with weapons and armor, will shape your character. Do you want to be a heavily armored tank or a swift and agile wizard? You're free to create whatever type of character you want, though how effective they are fighting the creatures of the world will vary. This freedom means that there are potentially unlimited ways you can play the game, and this is the main reason I keep coming back to the Souls series. Compared to Dark Souls, however, the last Endless game is more restrictive, though much, much larger in scope. This likely comes as no surprise to anyone familiar with the hugely successful MMO, but the game I've spent the most time playing over the last 10 years is World of Warcraft. I won't even attempt to add up how many hours I've spent, lost, in the world of Azeroth, but it's a lot. Warcraft is a narrative-driven, open-world game with no defined ending. The world is persistent and populated with thousands of other players. Your character begins at level 1 and has a clear progression, up to this point with the current expansion, to level 100. However, the game doesn't end when you reach 100. A lot of Warcraft players will even argue the game doesn't even properly begin until you reach max level. As your character travels through the world, you kill enemies and go on quests. In doing so, you gather new weapons and armor and level up. Every player class is distinct, with separate abilities and gear. Whereas Dark Souls has fairly fluid classes, the ones in Warcraft are rigid. Your class and level determine your skills and abilities, and these help shape what kind of character you are. This is the gameplay loop that hooked me years ago, and continues to hook me now. The typical trajectory for a Warcraft character ends with raiding. This is where groups of max level characters team up to take on difficult enemies for powerful new weapons and armor. Raids also serve as an end to the established story of the world. For instance, in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, the Lich King terrorized Azeroth with an undead army. Your character's role in the narrative is to team up with other adventurers to take him down. Beating the final raid sees the death of the Lich King and the end to that chapter of the story. I'm not particularly interested in raiding, though I have done some in the past. There are also dailies you can complete, repeatable quests that award gold or reputation with different factions. I tend to do some of these, but not consistently enough to reap the rewards. I look at the max level of my character as a kind of endpoint in itself. That's the goal I'm seeking when progressing from level 1 to 100. I like seeing how my characters change, aesthetically in the game, but also how my relationship with them changes. Seeing them at level 100 is like seeing a finished version of a sketch I have in my head. Because leveling a new character is my favorite way to play Warcraft, I've got a load of characters between level 2 and 100. Unlike Dark Souls, where I enjoy playing through the same area, I do get bored of questing in some zones in Azeroth. The main difference is the amount of time spent. Leveling from 1 to 100 can take a very long time, even when helped with experience boosting heirloom items. When I'm playing through familiar areas, I tend to zone out, skipping the quest stories and focusing on doing what I need to do to level up as fast as possible. Even blasting through like this, it still takes many hours. Realistically, those are hours I could be spending playing a different game, one I haven't played over and over. So why do I keep playing? Part of the reason is the familiarity. Because I know the game and quests so well, I can just switch off and play. After a long day at work, sometimes I want to zone out in a comfortable environment. Well, that's only part of it, however. At its core, Warcraft is a game designed to keep you playing. World of Warcraft survives on a monthly subscription model. In order to maintain player numbers, developer Blizzard has tuned the gameplay to such a degree to make the game a virtual Skinner box. Almost every player action has a positive reinforcement reaction. For instance, you're rewarded with an attractive sound and visual flourish whenever you level up and for every achievement. Playing the game, I constantly feel I'm making progress, even if I'm not doing anything in particular. Realistically, I know I've wasted a lot of time playing Warcraft. But is time enjoyed? Time wasted? Does the fact I've had fun playing make up for every other game I've missed? I don't regret playing Warcraft, but I have to keep reminding myself of the trap the game represents. Playing DayZ, I know I've finished when my character dies or when there's no more gear for me to find. In Dark Souls, I know I'm done when I beat the last boss. However, there is no end to the World of Warcraft. You can literally play for 24 hours a day and still find new things to do or new characters to create. It's a true definition of an endless game. Sure, I can stop when my character hits level 100, but what about my other characters? Everyone has a favorite game or a nostalgic title they keep coming back to. Everyone has one game they've played more than others. There's nothing wrong with falling into an endless game, but don't forget there could be another one just around the corner.